So, my friends and I have gotten into a bit of a discussion online, a lot of back and forth, and the gates of heaven were brought up, and that these gates perhaps are closed. And I got to wondering, are there gates to heaven? So, I did an unofficial English Bible study. Um, I'll tell you the way I did it. I first tried to look up the phrase gates of heaven, and that phrase there is only one mention, and it's in Genesis chapter 28, verse 17, and it's Jacob. He's going to his uncle Laban's. He has his dream in Bethel on his first night there. And you remember it was a ladder that seemed to be stretching up to heaven, and angels going up and down on it. And when the dream finished, here's what he said. How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. So, for actual reference to the phrase gate of heaven, that was all I could find in an English Bible search. So then I went on and I thought, okay, let's just look at all the gates and see what we find. Most of them were city gates, really didn't have anything to do with heaven. There was the phrase the gates of death in Job 17:16, and that's referring to I'm getting close to dying or wish I was. Job 38:17, this is an answer, this is part of God's answer to Job, and he says God is emphasizing getting to hard to get to places. Have you ever been to the bottom of the sea, Job? Have you ever been out far enough that you could see the circle of the earth? Have you been to the gates of death and come back? That's the idea there. Uh, Psalms, David mentions it a couple times, meaning I was almost dead. I was at the gates of death, and God brought me back. Um, Isaiah 38, uh, same sort of thing, means you're to being at the gates of death means you're almost dead. Went into the New Testament now. Gates of I'm calling them the gates of the way. Jesus is teaching here: enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, but the small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life. So these are not city gates; they're gates so that you can get onto a path or a way or a road, and they are easily gone through. Right? They're hard to find, but once you find the narrow gate, you can go right on through it, no problem. Uh, Further on, and I added this to the gates of death list, Matthew 16:18, where Jesus is describing the church after Peter saying, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," and saying, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades, which would be maybe a New Testament way to say the gates of death, will not prevail against it. Now, what I did find in both Testaments is a new Jerusalem. Isaiah 54:11 through 13 is talking about God restoring his nation, and he's talking about the gates of the New Jerusalem that God's going to build, and they're made of precious jewels. It says in Ezekiel 48:30 through 35 that there'll be 12 gates on that city, and the name of the city is The Lord is There. And if you go to Revelation 21, you see a lot of this echoed. There are 12 gates on this new Jerusalem that's coming down out of heaven to earth. Each gate is made of a precious stone, and Revelation 21 tells you what each one is going to be. And it is said that the God and the Lamb will be there. That'll be their permanent residence, if you will. And this all takes place after the old earth that we're living on now and the old heaven have passed away. And verse 25 says that the gates of this new Jerusalem will never be shut, because it's not going to be night, because God and his light are centered there. So there'll be no reason for those gates to be shut. So I thought, okay, gates isn't getting me anywhere. What pictures do we have of the afterlife that might hint at gates? So I started, and this is just for my noggin now, so there may be other ones out there that I missed. But this is what I came up with. In Luke 16:19 through 31, Jesus tells the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Now, Lazarus is a very sick, poor beggar that Jesus says is left outside the gate of the rich man. So there is a gate mentioned there. And Lazarus dies a torturous death. And he's starving to death. And he just wants some food from the rich man's table. And the guy can't, even though he's right outside the gate, can't give it to him. And when Lazarus dies, he is comforted at Abraham's side. He's counted as a child of faith like Abraham. And when the rich man dies, he has had all the blessings, and now he's in a torturous place. Very hot is how Jesus describes it. And there is a chasm between being a child of Abraham and where this rich man is. It doesn't really mention heaven. It doesn't even say that God is there. But it does say that because the poor beggar suffered faithfully, he was a son of the faithful of Abraham and was with him, which was a lot better than where the faithless rich man was, who couldn't even spare a crust of bread for the poor man. Revelation 4 is probably the clearest picture that we have of heaven. And John, right at Revelation chapter 4, verse 1, says that a door was opened between him and heaven. And it almost feels like back to Jacob, where Jacob was given a glimpse into heaven. And now John is given this glimpse into heaven, and he's invited to come up. So he does, and he sees this vast scene in heaven. You've got the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders, and you've got this throne and this crystal being at the center with lightning coming out of him, and the sea of glass around it. And I read 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I could not find a mention of any kind of walls or gates in this picture of heaven. The massive idea was there is that this place is just so full of God's presence and power that there's no need for walls or gates or anything like that. There's nothing that's going to threaten people there, because this powerful being is fully able to take care of anything that might come against him there in heaven. So, admittedly, a quick study, and this is all I could find. I don't think there are gates in heaven. I think the gates in heaven has kind of gotten confused with the New Jerusalem, where there are gates. It would seem from Revelation 21 that those gates are more about beauty and splendor, not about defense, that they just stay open all the time, because this picture of heaven that we saw in Revelation 4 and following is now centered in this city on earth. And even that city is not with the reality we're experiencing now. It's going to be after our reality is done and God has ushered in the final age, the new reality. So, hope that's helpful to you. Please feedback if there's stuff I've missed that I need to consider that I haven't. Please let me know. And hope this is helpful.